Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in Iran and the Middle East in the past 24 hours. The lead today is still the US-Iran diplomatic track, but the update is sharper now. This is no longer just about whether the two sides can stop shooting. It is about whether Washington and Tehran can build a deal that survives uranium politics, sanctions pressure, shipping panic, Israeli military decisions, Iranian hardliners, and one very angry energy market. Talks are still moving through mediators, including Qatar, Oman, Egypt, and Pakistan. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said negotiators are working through specific language and that it may take a few days. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf traveled to Qatar and then returned to Tehran after consultations. So the channel is alive. But alive does not mean healthy. This thing is walking around with a neck brace. The hardest issue remains Iran's nuclear program. Iranian officials continue to say the nuclear file is not on the agenda, and Tehran is still insisting on its right to enrich uranium on Iranian soil. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, has demanded that Iran's highly enriched uranium be turned over, destroyed inside Iran, or moved to an acceptable location under verification. That is the main event. Everything else is surrounding noise until that gap narrows. Iran's goal appears pretty clear: get economic relief without looking like it handed Trump a victory lap. Tehran wants access to frozen assets and a route back into world oil markets. The numbers being discussed are serious. One report describes Iran pushing for $12 billion in the initial phase. Another describes talks around $24 billion. Iranian-linked reporting also claimed Tehran wants half of frozen assets released when a deal is signed and the rest within 60 days. And that money is not just a domestic economy story. It is a reconstitution story. Iranian officials reportedly said unfrozen assets would be used to rebuild and improve ballistic missile and drone programs. That is why Washington is so focused on sequencing. If Iran gets cash first and commitments later, the US and Israel may have spent months degrading Iranian capabilities only to watch Tehran refill the toolbox with better funding. Hormuz is the other pressure point, and this is where Iran is playing the geography card, like it just found an extra ace in the deck. Tehran is still refusing a clean reopening of the Strait of Hormuz under normal freedom of navigation rules. Iranian officials are talking instead about Iranian arrangements, or a new passage mechanism with Oman. Ali Bagheri, Iran's deputy secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, said on the sidelines of a Moscow security summit that until all issues are agreed, Iran considers nothing agreed. That is diplomatic language with a steel-toed boot underneath it. For the US, the principle is simple. The strait has to open without Iran turning one of the world's most important waterways into a managed access checkpoint. Rubio said the strait must be open one way or the other. He also said the current situation is unlawful, illegal, unsustainable, and unacceptable. That is not exactly spa music. The commercial consequences are already real. More than 20,000 seafarers on over 1,000 vessels remain stranded in the Persian Gulf, with only a trickle of normal pre-war traffic moving through. Even if a deal is reached, the return to normal will not be instant. Demining takes time. Insurers need confidence. Tankers need routes, crews, cargo plans, and some reason to believe they will not become the next headline. South Korea just added another layer to that risk picture. Seoul's investigation into the May 4th attack on the HMM-operated bulk carrier Namu found the vessel was likely hit by Iranian-made anti-ship missiles, possibly Nor or Qatar variants. South Korean officials said debris showed engine and component similarities to Iranian systems, though they stopped short of conclusively assigning intent. Seoul plans to summon Iran's ambassador and issue a protest. That matters, because once neutral commercial shipping becomes part of the pressure campaign, the crisis starts landing on desks far outside Washington, Tehran, and Jerusalem. Iran's public messaging is not calming anybody down. Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei used a May 26 statement to reaffirm the regime's revolutionary line: destruction of Israel, expulsion of U.S. forces from the region, and a new Islamic civilization aligned against Washington. He said regional states would no longer serve as shields for U.S. bases and revived death to America and death to Israel as slogans. That is not just rhetoric for the rally crowd. It is a signal to negotiators and hardliners that any deal has to fit inside the regime's ideological guardrails. Now, Lebanon may be the biggest spoiler file on the board. Israel has expanded operations against Hezbollah, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is deepening the campaign, seizing dominant terrain, and fortifying a security zone to protect northern communities. Israeli forces are operating beyond the forward defense line, also known as the Yellow Line, in southern Lebanon. The tactical details matter less than the strategic effect. Lebanon is now directly complicating the U.S.-Iran negotiating environment. Hezbollah is central to Iran's regional network. Israel sees Hezbollah's drone threat as unacceptable. The U.S. is trying to preserve a possible Iran deal while also backing Israel's right to defend itself. That is a diplomatic hallway so narrow you have to turn sideways to walk through it. Israel has conducted a large wave of strikes in southern and eastern Lebanon, including against Hezbollah weapons depots, command centers, observation posts, and infrastructure. Lebanese officials say more than 700 people have been killed since the mid-April ceasefire went into effect, while at least 10 Israeli soldiers have been killed in southern Lebanon during that period. U.S.-facilitated Israel-Lebanon talks are still supposed to continue, including a security track at the Pentagon and a political track afterward. But the air is getting thinner. Hezbollah remains weakened, but not out of the game. The group is still using rockets, mortars, and drones, including low-cost systems that are harder to jam. That is the future warfare lesson hiding inside the Lebanon story. Cheaper tools can still create expensive problems. Israeli officials are weighing expanded action against Hezbollah drone infrastructure, including possible targeted strikes in Beirut. U.S. officials reportedly support targeted strikes on Hezbollah commanders, but not large-scale attacks on Beirut. That distinction is important. It is also fragile. Gaza is still active, too. Israel and Shin Bet said they killed Mohammed Odeh, the newly appointed commander of Hamas's military wing in Gaza City. Odeh had replaced Izz ad-Din al-Haddad, who was killed earlier in May. The strike hit buildings in a crowded market area ahead of Eid al-Adha, killing at least 3 Palestinians and wounding dozens, according to local medics and witnesses. Netanyahu called Odeh one of the architects of the October 7th massacre and said Israel would keep pursuing those involved. The strategic point is that Israel is continuing a leadership-targeting campaign even inside the broader ceasefire framework. Inside Iran, President Masoud Pezeshkian is trying to ease pressure at home by partially restoring internet access after an 88-day nationwide blackout. NetBlocks called it the longest nationwide internet shutdown in modern history. The blackout hammered Iran's tech sector, online commerce, and ordinary livelihoods. But this is not a clean reopening. WhatsApp remains restricted. Some users are still offline. Iran's monitored domestic intranet remains active, and judiciary-linked media reported legal complaints against the working group that approved the restoration. So yes, the window opened. The security state is still standing next to it with a clipboard. Finally, the cyber lane deserves attention. Israeli researchers at Gambit Security attributed the March breach of the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority to Iranian state-backed hackers using the Ababil of Manab persona. The attackers allegedly stole at least 700 gigabytes of emails, backups, and files, and claimed destructive activity. The same persona has claimed operations against South Florida's Tri-Rail, vehicle tracking company Vinx, and Saudi infrastructure firm Unimac. U.S. agencies have not publicly confirmed the attribution, but the FBI said it is coordinating with partners in response. Thank you for listening and for contributing to the growth of this community. If you found the show valuable, a review or a thoughtful comment helps extend its reach to others. For more in-depth analysis, we publish a daily intel brief on Substack, restrictedhandling.substack.com, covering Russia, China, Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK. Take care and have a great day.